Howdy, all of you delicious people. I'm here today to view Power Rangers episodes. So, today, of course, is to be Christmas Day, the day of which that I'm delivering this video. To a lot of people, it'll probably be an actual holiday, and some others, it may actually just be December 25th. For me, it's just another day. But still having to realize that it is a holiday just brings depression instead of being jolly or having the Christmas spirit of things. So, with that said, I'm going to go on and just keep on keeping on with doing this video. And some people may go on and be like, hey man, feel the same. Or some people may go on and be like, hey man, shut up out of all this personal stuff, just get to the video. So thank you for going on and listening to this or watching the video. I really do appreciate it. It means a lot. So, with that said, I realized that I was to go on and probably not do the cutting edge of cutting edge Power Rangers episodes within the day. I know a lot of people would go on and would state that there are certain seasons that aren't the greatest, or aren't the most trending or popular or whatever. But I, of course, was to pick every single one of these episodes because I had seen a monster that looked visually cool, and I chose that over story, over like how much I might not go on and thoroughly enjoy so and so season or whichever, or really just going on and kind of just wanting to just try a different season to kind of roll through and kind of check up on like certain monsters and stuff like that, so that way I can just kind of be like, ooh, hey, this looks cool, oh wow. So with that said, let's go on and let's talk about these Power Rangers episodes. So we of course have a Power Rangers Dino SuperCharge episode that of course is to be Here Comes Hexmas. Gotta state, I feel that Hexmas himself is a random barrage of just all kinds of crap all just smashed together to make a being. But I honestly just thought that that was cool. I went on and just liked it for some bizarre reason. There are other certain times where I would go on and see that idea of just a wild barrage of just a bunch of crap just slammed together, and it rationally doesn't make sense to me, but for some reason I'm like, but this Christmas character works. Because I feel that I would go on and like RPM or something like that and just see like two things that like don't make sense together just smashed in anyways. But have you ever gone on and seen a Power Rangers episode? They've been doing that for I don't know how long. But so we go into Here Comes Christmas, and we have the bare basic story approach to an evil Santa Claus. But I felt like a good portion of this episode I did like. We do have some character review for me, who of course isn't to be aware of a lot of these characters because I haven't gone on and seen a bunch of this show, or enough of this show to really say that I know the characters' ins and outs, but I've seen Dino Charge and it is interesting, and Super Dino Charge is interesting. But so we come into this episode and we find out that our Rangers are receiving gifts that are to turn them evil, into evil elves, because they of course are being given coal. And we find that the other Rangers who are not affected by these gifts are going on and trying to persuade these evil elves to return good again by reminding them of their past and all the things that they have gone on and accomplished within the time that they have been a Power Ranger, or really just a character on this show. So there is a bit of review of this show, and a lot of people are like, man, I hated like some of the review episodes. But again, for me, a person who had not really seen this show all that often, I was like, okay, I'm fine with this. Because of course we might feel fairly similar to the Super Ninja Steel episode. But hey, I went there. So yeah, so really, I did enjoy Dino SuperCharge. I would state that it's a solid okay. So yeah, so it is a thumbs up. I would also go on and recommend a Power Rangers Dino Thunder episode called In Your Dreams, which also has a like a Christmas monster in that episode. And that episode is honestly just rather fun because we have all of the Power Rangers who are dreaming and they're having nightmares. And we have at one point where Kira is like having like an alligator monster that's in love with her, and it's a really fun episode. But I think we have Connor, who is to have this kind of Christmas monster in there. So there's that for you. Not promoting a video that I did at some point. I'm just stating, like, go ahead and check that one out in your dreams. But so, Power Rangers Ninja Steel. We are, of course, covering episode 10. The Rangers ribbon. This goes on and states, because this is some kind of bootleggish thing. But anyways, the ribbon tree episode of Power Rangers Ninja Steel episode 10. So I was to have gone on and like stated, like, you know what, I don't really watch Ninja Steel or Super Ninja Steel, so I'm just gonna go through the catalog of their monsters and just kind of pick one that stands out the most to me. And of course I immediately went to Trap Saw. And Trap Saw, to me, I'm like, oh my god, this looks like a Jason Voorhees monster. And I'm like, oh my god, this looks freaking awesome. And then I went into the episode. The episode is to be kind of fairly Looney Tune-ish to me. It feels that whoever wrote this episode, or just put this all together, was to have gone on and done like some cartoonish stuff before this. It just feels that way. We have the Rangers that are trying to go on and preserve this ribbon tree. And we all of a sudden have Preston's father, who is Mr. Tien, who comes in and he's like, well, hey, I don't want this ribbon tree. I want a skyscraper there. Because, of course, I want to have this benefit my wallet at the end of the day. So we're going to try to get rid of this one ribbon tree that seems to just be in the middle of nowhere. It's really in the middle of nowhere. Why have to go on and just plow down this tree? And also I feel that Preston was to have known that this tree was going to get taken down. And so, like, the Rangers go on to this ribbon tree, and then, like, Preston is ending up in the middle of this between the Rangers and his dad. And so we have Trap Saw, who goes on and is to, like, not play off with the whole like chainsaw bit of his costume as I would have liked it to. But instead, we have this character that goes on and is to have these big fat X's that anybody and your brother could go on and see. And for anybody that is to go on and stand on this X, something's going to happen to them, Looney Tune-ish like. But we also find out that Trapsaw is not that good of a villain. He's not that good of a monster. And so we have some mistakes being made at some point in this episode. So yeah, really this episode was for me to just call it Oakley Dokley. It's just barely squeakingly okay. I could go on and just be like tolerating and be okay with the very Looney Tune-ish vibe that this episode goes into. But yeah, it goes on and gives me a thumbs up just barely. So with that said, let's go on and let's talk about the Power Rangers Ninja Steel episode 21, a monster mix-up. So I have to go on and I have to apologize that this is a Halloween episode that I am going on and doing via Christmas Day. Very weird. But you know what? I saw one monster and one monster alone in this episode that kind of, when I was to kind of randomly see it on Google somewhere, I was like, what is that? And so I further went in to look for it, and like I found it on like Sentai like things, and I was like, wait a minute, I need to like, this has to be on American show somewhere. And so I was like consistently like trying to find it, and so I ended up finding out this one monster was on Super Ninja Steel, and this monster was called Ack-shun. Ackshun. Ack-shun. And so I was so intrigued by this monster that I was like, I need to go on and see this episode, regardless of how it played out. So I went on to realize that this episode feels very much like Trick or Trial, or the one Power Rangers Dino Charge episode, where we have the Dino Charge Rangers needing to go to this intergalactic Halloween court, and they end up needing to justify that the Rangers are not to be in the wrong facing off against these monsters, because these monsters are to plead to the court that the Power Rangers had kind of caught them off guard or ambushed them, and we then have the Rangers that have to go on and be like, oh, no, we were in the right. And eventually that episode plays out, and I'm assuming that the Rangers get out of it. I didn't watch the whole episode because I realized that it's a review episode. So I was going to watch that like during Halloween, but it just didn't happen. And so I ended up just kind of going into this episode, and I was like, oh, this is the same kind of episode. And I didn't even realize it. I was just looking for a monster, and it took me to an episode that was to kind of be like a review of the show. And I was like, well, okay, like I've really seen Super Ninja Steel besides the one Master Morpher Tommy episode, which I was like, oh my god, the Master Morpher is freaking awesome. Like that whole visual of that like was great, regardless of like the coin not being in the morpher through that episode, and you would go on and just see these like random coins that get put into Master Morpher. Like how they haven't gone on and how they haven't decided to try and sell like a master morpher to people makes no rational sense to me why they haven't gone on and done that. Because so many people have gone on to make their own uh, like kind of makeshift master morpher because it's the coolest freaking thing. The Sixth Ranger will go on and even tell you that that of course like the master morpher is like the best morpher uh, clearly. But also one thing as well. So the Dino SuperCharge episode of Hexmas, come to find out that character is to actually be in Power Rangers Heroes of the Grid. I, of course, have been kind of casually watching Heroes of the Grid, even though I don't personally have the ability to play it because that requires money to do that. But I was to go on and just kind of see a lot of other people play it, and either through Renegade Studios or even to see Geekvolution go on and play it at certain points in time, or even just kind of paint figures, which was like, okay, cool, this is a chillax video, it's great. So yeah. So that's all I have to say about these episodes. Let's go on a little bit more. So, for the Super Ninja Steel episode, we have this episode to go on and be a monster ranger swap episode. It's like a Freaky Friday kind of thing. It's a body swap kind of episode. And we come to find that the monsters that are swapping with the Rangers, they are, of course, to need to be put into this intergalactic Halloween court, and they are to be heinous monsters, and they have a lot of crimes that they, of course, are going to get booked for. And the Rangers are like, no, like, hey, they took our bodies, and like now we're here, and so we have to go on and play the whole game of like the body swapping thing, where they have to go on and like prove who they are, and that is always like the goofiest thing in a body swapping episode. But either way, I think it's time to say that I think it's about that time yet again to of course go into the spoilers of these episodes. So I'm letting everybody know right now. So when it comes down to Ninja Steel or Super Ninja Steel, I am not 100% all knowing of Ninja Steel stuff, as far as like their weapons and their Zords and whatever. So at certain points, I'm not exactly going to be vastly specific about every single blade and weapon and mode that they go into, because of course, really not familiar with Ninja Steel. I've gone on to see some Super or Dino SuperCharge. I want to say just Super Dino Charge, because we would go on and have like Super Mega Force or whatever, like, and they would just slap the word super on a second season of something. That has got to be the laziest thing. Couldn't they have come on and just like come up with a more like interesting name? Like, you could have been like having so many names that still fit perfectly, but they have to go on and just like slap the word like super there, because we had like so many like seasons that were to just have like Dino Fury, which is just like any other number of other season names. Like, I'm assuming that we're probably gonna have like Thunder something in some other title at some point, because what else can we put? I'm waiting for another ninja or samurai season, because we've kind of ran out of like animals or dinosaurs to do at some point. or we're all probably still hoping for that one Power Rangers train season, right? For some reason, we don't know why, but anyways, we're all assuming that they're probably going to take it from some Sentai version so that we can already have the suits to use up. But anyways, let's go into this. Let's go into the double five if I haven't already. Let's go into spoiler time. Spoiler time. It's about that time you spoil these episodes. So we start at the Amber Beach Dinosaur Zoo. I think I might have gone on at some point and called it a museum because when you go on and you Google search this thing, the sign may say zoo, but when I go on and research this, it says museum. So we have Shelby coming in on both Riley and Chase, kind of fighting over these Christmas lights. So we all of a sudden have one of the Rangers notice that there is to be these Christmas presents addressed to them, and it states to open them now. So all three of them decide to go on and open all of these Christmas presents and realize that it's Cole. They all of a sudden disappear. So we have Tyler coming in to have had these wreaths, and we have Tyler who notices a Christmas gift and is to bring it to Kendall. So we all of a sudden have, when Tyler gets to Kendall, he then notices that certain Power Rangers are returning, both Koda and Ivan. And we also find that the Keeper is to also be here also. I think there's a lot of times where I go on and I look at the Keeper and I'm like, did they CGI him in some way or another? Or is this just like the costume just doing all the work? Because I'm like, man, that's like a budget that they're just blowing on something that they honestly should not. But it is what it is with this show. So we have Tyler that goes on to open his Christmas box and is to have this, hey, who gave me a lump of coal? And then all of a sudden he just changes and his heart grows less of a size of what it was that day. And we all of a sudden have Tyler's like, oh, I'm evil. I'm this evil elf that works for Hexmas. And he's going to destroy you. So we immediately have our Rangers who go on to tie up Tyler to this chair. And we have Koda, and only a caveman talk of which that he can give you, is to go on and state why Tyler should not be evil anymore, convincing him that that he should remember about his dad and the number of times that Tyler did not give up on trying to find his dad somehow or another. And eventually we find out that Tyler's dad actually becomes a Power Ranger, and he ends up becoming the Aqua Ranger. I was like, wow, that's pretty sweet. How did I not know that? Because that actually is really cool. And of course, that probably kind of steals off of my idea of having my own kind of light blue Ranger. Man, does that kind of put a wrench in that. Not realizing that this ever happened in this show or in Power Rangers in general. Man, it almost kind of feels like every idea by Power Rangers has already been done at some point. And man, does that just kind of suck. It's like, man, I can't just go on and just state that I am just the only one of something, but then someone will go on and correct me and just be like, oh no, I'm sorry, they've already gone and done an Ocean Ranger, or they've already gone and done a Light Blue Ranger, and they would even go on and do that in like Ninja Storm anyways, so it is what it is. So but they haven't gone on and done a Megalodon Ranger yet, so, like, I still have that at least. Let's hope that one day they will go on and do a Megalodon Ranger that looks just as cool as what I have going, and then I'll be like, yeah! I won't be like disappointed about that. I'll be like, great, finally they did it. Because there's so many other like Jurassic period animals that they can go in and do. I just read up on like prehistoric spiders, and there was this thing called Mega Arachna that I was like, wow, that sounds cool as a name. And then I saw that the spider is like this big fat thing that kind of looks like a scorpion in a way, and I was like, wow, well, Mega Arachna, that looked pretty cool. I did that like a while ago, and I'm remembering it now because I haven't stated it. Anyways, so going back into the episode, we have Tyler, who is to state in some Dino Charge episode, or SuperCharge, we have Tyler that goes on and states that he has lost his dad in an excavation. Tyler had even gotten at some point where he had confused Ivan, thinking that, oh, this is my dad. This is my dad. That's who yeah, it's got to be him. And then come to find out it would be Ivan. That, of course, is to be the Knight Ranger from, like, medieval times. He's just, we just have a number of, like, characters that just come from certain time periods. What if that would have been the way to have every single ranger like come from some goofy time period? Like, we have one ranger that comes from the future. Like, we have one guy that comes from like Roman times. We have one guy that comes like, that would be so goofy, but like, heck of it might just work somehow or another. We could have them kind of all have like these individual, like, I would assuming you could probably sell it in comic books, and then you would kind of combine them all together in this weird time period ranger piece and have it be like Legends of Tomorrow, where there just be all these people that this future ranger just collected, and that would be kind of fun. So we then have Tyler that is to somehow turn evil again somewhere in the show, and he is fighting off with Chase, and he's having this kind of like alien, like, or alien animal kind of like thing about him. It's really interesting. And so we have the Aqua Ranger that comes rocking in with this suit, and he, of course, is to convince Tyler to not go on and be eval, because the Aqua Ranger is to be James, Tyler's father. And we get that reveal, and it's like, oh, what a nice tender moment. Isn't that great? That I didn't realize ever happened in the show. So we go on after that and have Tyler, whose spell is to have broken, like a fever. And so Tyler's to realize, like, yeah, I'm not an evil elf, I'm a Power Ranger. And I'm like, okay, slow down there, bucko. So we all of a sudden have Santa, who's given the Power Rangers a little bit of a jingle. Because, of course, it seems that Santa is to have the Power Rangers on speed dial, because who else is he going to call? Ghostbusters? They're out this day. So Santa, it seems, has gone on to do some things with the Dino Charge Rangers before, and so we have Santa that is going on like, well, hey, I need you guys' help again, because somehow someone had gone on to steal all of my coal. And so Santa would say normally for like really naughty kids, they would go on and have him deliver them coal. And so, and he has to kind of waste that resource to kind of like, here you go, kid, chuck. So we have Kendra that's like, well, hey, you need to go on and kind of give us the location, and so we'll be able to help you out. So we have the Keeper that goes on and is to hand the Rangers these Energems, and is to say like, okay, you guys are going to get these Energems to go out there and do what you need to do. So we go on and have Tyler, who has to admit that we're going to save Christmas again. So we go on. When it was revealed that Ivan was to have like been his episode that he showed up. I think he was fighting. The Rangers were fighting Fury on that day. Fury, the kind of red looking character. So we go on to have the Rangers, the other half of them, because there's three of them that are kind of stuck in this factory, and we have the Rangers going on and seeing Vivex, because I guess that's how you pronounce that. I went on to state that it's Vivex because I think it sounds better, but I guess it's Vivex. That's the way the show pronounces it, so that's how I'm going to have to pronounce it, even though Vivex just sounds cooler. So we have the Rangers that go on and notice Vivex. Like, how are they still alive? Because supposedly Sledge's ship had gone on to fly into the sun and had gotten destroyed. And so, like, how are these characters still here? How are they still going on? But so we then showcase Hexmas and his kind of his tree kind of wand staff like thing. Either way, it just looks freaking cool. And I think we had gone on and seen this whole tree thing in another kind of Christmas special. So they kind of recycled that a bit. But still, it looks cool with Hexmas. It just does. So we have Hexmas that is going on and just kind of putting spells and all these bits of coal to manipulate the world to be onto Hexmas's bidding, because he had taken a long time to come up and concoct this whole plan. So we have the Rangers that go on to see like we have Tyler, Coda, Kendall, and Ivan, who are to notice the evil Rangers. And we have a moment where the Rangers go on and have Riley and Chase that are in this van, and the Rangers close the van and they drive away with these Rangers, and they of course tie them up onto a chair and are to force them to be convinced that they are good people. We have Ivan, the knightly man, that goes on to convince Chase, and he talks to him about his quest for love, as we go on and see that this guy is asking Shelby to go to the movies at some point, which I guess Shelby is to be with Tyler. Is that how it's really working out? Because we almost had them like kiss at some point in this episode. But then that ends up getting ruined by Caveman Coda. So, buzzkill if he ever was one. So, we then have Chase, who is doing push-ups. And I'm like, okay, yeah, you're doing that in front of a girl. Hopefully you can do 1,000,000 of them, because if you don't, then, like, this girl is just going to be like, yeah, this guy. So we all of a sudden have Chase finally do find love with some woman that I don't remember what her name was, because heaven forbid I put that in wherever I was to figure out how to review this episode. You can go on and state the name in the comments. It's completely fine, because at the end of the day, I will just say, like, okay, I don't watch enough Dino Charge to know who everyone is. My apologies. So we have Chase that is to have broken up with this girl And then Chase goes on and re-meets up with this girl. Is like, well, you know what? I would have broken up with me too, because for all the stuff that I kind of forced you into doing, and I realize that now, what a mistake that was. Chase goes on and realizes that, like, that maybe we should just kind of give this a second chance, and it somehow works out. So we have Chase that is to realize the error of his ways, that he is not some evil elf. We also had Chase that goes on and references New Zealand a lot, which of course is where this show is actually taped. And so I guess for people who go on and actually watch Power Rangers in New Zealand, like, man, do they probably get a good kick out of that, because this show is technically filmed in that place anyways. So we have Lord of the Rings and we have Power Rangers. New Zealand, it's great. No offense to, like, as if, like, New Zealand, that's all you have. No, you have so much more. Go New Zealand. I don't live there, but I appreciate you anyways. For those of you who actually watch from New Zealand, yeah. Anyways, go whoever. Anyways, moving on. So then we go on to have Kendall that has to convince Riley. And so we, of course, go on and have... I don't think I don't think I have anything of what happened with Riley. So, come to find out, Riley was to be a person that liked fencing. Why, I don't know. Give something unique for the character to do. But we had Riley's brother, who is to be this farmer, and Riley's brother is like, hey man, are you gonna feed them pigs? I don't know why he has to have this accent, because I'm sure he probably doesn't have this accent, because it's from New Zealand. So, but Riley, that's okay, I'll go on and I'll feed the pigs. And all of a sudden seems that Riley is to have a bully named Bert. I'm sorry, if you have a bully, he better have a really cool name. Because if he doesn't, then it'll be like, okay, Sesame Street, like, what have you got going? But again, if anybody has the name Bert and they're watching this, like, you have a cool name, maybe, or you gave yourself a nickname like Bo or something, I don't know. Anyways, so Bert, it seems, is to want to arm wrestle Riley, and for some reason or another, Kendall is to state this goofiest thing, and it states that at one point Riley was to stay true to himself. Like, okay, alright, just whatever. So, for some reason, Bert forgave Riley, and at some point it seemed that they had become friends, even though Bert was still kind of giving Riley crap. Like, Bert went on and did this very long-winded, like, apology, where it's like, you know what, I'm sorry about all the things that I've ever did to you, Riley. Anyways, so Riley after that is to come to a clear consensus that he shouldn't be evil anymore, because they ran out of stuff for flashbacks for Riley. So Riley is telling the Rangers that Hexmas has this rocket sleigh, and they should really, like, get going here to go against Hexmas. And so we have the Keeper that goes on and gives Energems, and has, of course, Tyler take Shelby's Energem, because she will need it. So we go on to have the Rangers who meet up with Hexmas, with the Vivex. And we have the Rangers needing an explanation of why Hexmas was to still be alive. And so, come to find out, Sledge's ship flew into the sun, and before that was to all horrifically go down the way it was, Hexmas had gone on to take an escape pod and get the heck out of there somehow or another. So he was to miraculously make this escape, which they probably wrote in for the story. So we all of a sudden have Hexmas who's like, well, hey, I got a gift for you guys. It's called the Pink Ranger. So we all of a sudden have Shelby, who's evil. He's like, Merry Christmas, Power Rangers. And I was like, dang, Shelby. Shelby being evil was probably the best thing that I've ever seen from a Dino Charge episode. If only Shelby could have gone on and been an evil ranger that was converted into being a good ranger, man, would I would have been sold with that thing, with that story. Shelby would have pulled it off really good. Or I think that they should have made Shelby evil a dozen times for some story or another, because she really pulls off the evil side really well. So Shelby is going on and fighting with Tyler, and Tyler is to be morphed, because all the rest of the Dino SuperCharge Rangers are morphed. So Tyler unmorphs, and we have just Shelby, who is kicking Tyler's butt, really just mopping the floor with him, on a place of which that you probably wouldn't have a mop, but still. So Shelby goes on and is talking to Tyler, because Tyler just needs to convince Shelby of who she really is. So we go on to have Shelby that even whips out a Dino Saber against Tyler. So while all the other Rangers are fighting Vivix, they're not fighting Hexmas. Hexmas is still kind of putting his sleigh together. So the way that they write in Shelby here is that Shelby was to go on and confront Kendra and kind of win over Kendra's respect. She was to go on and sing with Tyler at some point at this karaoke place. Tyler and Shelby almost kissed, and Tyler was to state how, like, he really does, like Shelby and possibly have feelings and this and that, whatever, what have you. So we have Shelby that goes on and gets out of this whole thing, and we then have Tyler that gives Shelby her Energem, and Tyler and Shelby need to morph again. So we then go in to having Tyler that goes on and is to T-Rex SuperCharge morph, whatever that means, into this kind of armor. And I was like, okay, like, this is kind of decently a good visual, but as far as compares a number of other shields, there's just obviously certain other Rangers that kind of get cooler shields. Possibly the original Rangers with their shields. Man, somewhere down the road when they just did shields, they just ran out of cool ideas. But anyways, they still did Dino Ranger seasons though, so you gotta still appreciate that. So we have the T-Rex SuperCharge, we have the red and gold combine their chargers and do this victory maximum thing where you have all the Rangers that are just surrounding together, and they're all like kind of like having their hands in to this charge, and I was like, what is this? This looks like the goofiest visual ever. Honestly, if you were to go on and have that like yellow gun that everyone kind of morphs into, why not have those chargers be put into those guns and be fired off? Is it just a thing of like, well, hey, that's like promoting like gun use against a monster or whatever, and like that's not good? Maybe that's why they would go on and have all these like goofy energem things, attacks, and I was like, why not just go on and just fire that off of the gun morpher that you have? But then it's like, oh no, you can't go on and do that because this is a kids show. But I'm like, still, like it would make the most sense. You have all the lasers and the pew pew. Like, why not just go on and just fire off that energem? So, we have the maximum victory. Then we have the final strike. Then we have Heximus, who is to be completely knocked off of his sleigh as his sleigh explodes. So now Heximus does not have his sleigh any longer, and so we go on and have Heximus who's like, well, like, I'm just gonna go on and do the make my monster grow moment and be hit by the Magna Beam, as the Magna Beam was, of course, taken so long to have created this idea. You know what I bet? When you go on and you have people that are to write a Power Ranger season, they probably go on and they take a number of days to kind of plan this whole thing out of like, okay, what is the name going to be of the Power Ranger season? And then, okay, like, what is the idea for what the monsters are going to be? Okay, like, what is the make my monster grow moment? Like, I'm sure they kind of like have like a pretty strategic way of going on and naming all this stuff. And then they go on and say like, okay, so whenever we go on and say like Magna Beam, like everyone will know what that is via the writing thing. And it's like, oh, okay, all right. So like we can kind of easily break all these stories down every single time. So, and we go on to have the Rangers after the Heximus has gone on to Magna Beam. We then have the Rangers that are just like, okay, let's go into the Dino Charge Ultra Zord, which, like, as far as this sword goes, like, I think I can go on and be won over by it. But here's the one problem that I have with the episodes of which that I am to watch. You go on and you have a Megazord. And you have the Megazord that is going through a bajillion different transitions, all while the monster is just standing there, just kind of waiting for the Rangers to go through, like, 5 to 10 minutes of transitional things, because they have to go and find this extra Zord, and they have to find this like other Ranger to get into this Zord to combine the powers together of Grayskull and whoever the heck. And I'm like, this monster is just waiting a million years for these Rangers to finally get to the one blast-like thing to wipe it out. And that is the one thing that is to massively just bug the crap out of me. You would think that the monster would see that it's taking so long for these Zords to just transition. You would think that the monster would try to figure out a way to break up that transition, even though a lot of this footage is like stock footage of them doing this every single time. Still, I would rationally, in my brain, want to just have, hey, this Zord is flying in, well, kaplow with the monster, and just chop that Zord down. Just be like, ha ha ha, you can't get to your certain sequence. I just took that out. And so then the Zord will be like, oh no, what are we going to do now? Well, I guess we're going to have to come up with another, like, super awesome mega move and just kaplow the monster and wipe it out that way, instead of relying on the one stock footage that we always have that we reuse every single time. and we're going to have to be creative. We're going to have to think on our feet. Wouldn't that be amazing of a Power Rangers episode? It'd be this slightly tweakingly different episode than it would normally, because it seems that there's only like 1 to 2 ways to wipe out a monster that isn't like an armor, or isn't like a cannon, or is to really just be like a Megazord sword, or saber, or double 50 move, or a blaster like SPD has, the Judgment Blaster, whatever that thing is called. Anyways, so 20 years later, so we have the Dino Charge Ultra Zord, and man, I'm only going through 1 episode, and we're already at an hour already. So we have them combined with the Plesio Zord, and also the Patera Charge Megazord, and so we have a Heximus who is to go on and give a Christmas gift. We have the Raptor Zord that slashes. We have the combining Megazord power that goes on to deliver the Dino SuperCharge Saber and the Dino SuperCharge Drive Saber. We have them wipe out the monster that way. They go on to sing Christmas songs at the zoo, and we have Kendall and at keyboard. That's how like music is to be played in the background. So we have Tyler, who is putting on a star for this Christmas tree given to him by Chase, and all of a sudden we then have Tyler, who notices Santa is coming into the zoo, and Tyler ends up slipping and falling, and is to kind of smash this pie thing that goes flinging on the rest of the Rangers. Even though it didn't seem that would go that direction, still it just goes that way anyways. So we have all the Rangers with pie on their faces, and we had Coda and we had Warg, who was in the background. Warg, of course, was to be on that one zombie episode, which of course was fun. Even though, again, I would complain about Robot Caveman, but again, we have a caveman on the show anyways. Either way, you would have to just complain about it. So we go on to have Santa just say this, like, well, hey guys, who wants presents? And everybody just kind of forgets about it. So that's how we kind of play out of that episode. So now, of course, we go on into the Ninja Storm stuff. So we have at the beginning of this episode, we have the ribbon tree that the Rangers go to. So we all of a sudden have these kind of construction worker guys. One of them actually seems to have an actual name called Cutter. So they're coming in and they're wanting to tear this tree down after we've gone on and had certain people just kind of slap the ribbons on this tree. So we have the Rangers that are like, no, like, you're not going to go on and cut this tree down. And so all of a sudden we have Mr. Tien that comes in with these 2 goons, which of course I don't know who their names are, but I'm assuming that they're probably the Bulk and Skull for this season for some goofy reason. So we have Mr. Tien coming in, and whenever he is to move, like, the characters go on behind him and do the exact same movement. It's freaking weird. So Mr. Tien is to talk to the Power Rangers, and we have Mr. Tien that's looking at Preston. It's like, well, hey, like, why are you here? Like, I'm your dad, and like, you shouldn't go on and be here because you knew that this was going to happen today. And Preston's like, well, yeah, I guess it is. So we have Preston that's kind of caught in the middle of this. So we have the Rangers that are kind of sitting on this tree, and they're like, well, hey, you can't take down this tree because a lot of people have memories from these ribbons. And we have Mr. Tien that states, is like, well, hey, like, I have a memory too, a memory of me going on and bulldozing this tree down because I want a skyscraper uh, to fill my bank account. So he does it in a lot funnier way than how I deliver it, but still. So we all of a sudden have Mr. Tien that is to have his goons, the guys that are men in black suits, they go on and they take this hose and they're going to hose down the Rangers to push them away. And Preston uses his weird, goofy magic thing that he has. Didn't know they had that in the show. But Preston is to have this weird, goofy magic that has this hose kind of get away from these guys. So Mr. Tan is like, man, you guys can't do anything right. So we have the Rangers that are like, well, hey, we need to go on and save this tree somehow. So how about we go on and just have flyers and hope that everybody's interested in these flyers, because a lot of people probably wouldn't give a crap because it's flyers. But evidently for this show, they do. So luckily for them. So we then go to the Cosmo Royale, and we are showcasing the Warrior Dome, which actually is a really interesting way to bring in a monster. And this kind of feels like Thor Ragnarok, when we have like Thor who fights off against Hulk. Like that's what kind of like this reminded me of. And I was like, man, this is actually a really cool idea. I was to, of course, loved the idea where you would go on and you would just have this like demon TV channel that nobody really knew about. But all of a sudden we'd have this like demon TV like channel that would have all these shows and have all these things. And at one point we would have the whoever the main bad guy is, he would go on and just be like, oh yeah, like I'm gonna go on and take this monster from like my favorite show. I'm gonna go on and pluck him from that and like have him like go on and play out whatever scenario that he is to go on and have. And like I thought that would be a pretty cool idea, but that's just me. So we go on and we have the Galaxy Warriors, and so we have Cosmo Royale, who is to be having Trapsaw come out. So Trapsaw comes out, and we find out that Cosmo Royale is standing on this X, and we all of a sudden have an anvil that falls on Trapsaw, and Trapsaw is like, oh man, like I guess I like messed up on my trap, because the anvil just falls on him. So we go on to have Galvanax that is looking at Ripcon and is like, really? Like, this guy's a dunce. And Ripcon is like, well, hey, like he's just working some things out. Let us just kind of throw him out there and maybe he'll go on and do a better job. So we go on to have Mr. Tien, who is going on and talking to Preston in his car, and we have Preston's dad that's just kind of really upset because it seems that Preston's friends is costing him money, and we of course have Mr. Tien that's like, well, hey, like, you know what trees are, right? Like, have you ever gone on and know where paper comes from? Yeah, your script of the show, do you know where it comes from? It comes from a tree, Preston. Do you know where money comes from? A tree. Do you want to keep getting money that really could just be deposited directly from or in to your bank account? And you won't have to get physical money or a check from anywhere? Still, though. Anyways. So we have Brody that goes on to have all these flyers go out, and he's like, yeah, like this is gonna make the people come. Yeah, they're gonna be here. It's all gonna happen. And so we have both Sarah and Levi, that go on to be putting out these flyers, and we all of a sudden bizarrely have Levi who mentions that some restaurant seems to have gone on and be missing now. And he, of course, when he was on tour, like in the military, uh, he of course would always go to this restaurant, but I guess it's bizarrely gone now. So, Levi. So we all of a sudden have Brody that goes on to find Trapsaw, and we all of a sudden have a trap that is to be set, and it doesn't work out again. And so what happens is Trapsaw ends up getting onto the X, and he ends up getting wrecking ball like flying in and hitting him, and I'm like, man, this is so Looney Tunes, but it's kind of goofy and funny. So we have Ripcon that's like, come on, Trapsaw, like, you're making me look bad. You're making me look ridiculous. So we come and have Ripcon, who is fighting against the Red Ranger here as he morphs. So Ripcon like doesn't look bad cosmetically. It's like a bunch of just random barrage of crap that all is to be smashed together, but still, it looks pretty decent. So Ripcon is going against the Ranger here, and I think he has his Ninja Star Blade. So we have the Ranger that is fighting, and I think he has another like kind of knife or dagger thing with him also. So we all of a sudden come to find maybe it's the Ninja Blade or the Ninja Battle Morpher Blade mode. Not quite sure. So we all of a sudden also have Brody that is to change the Ninja Battle Morpher into bow mode, and I'm like, man, we have so many of these Power Rangers that have like so many of these like just like weapons galore just coming out of thin air. It's ridiculous, but it all comes, I guess, down to this Morpher, but still. So we have Ripcon, who is to use the Double Sword Doom Strike, whatever that means, and we have, of course, the Red Ranger that uses the Steel / Ninja Spin. Again, means gibberish to me. So, but it was on the show. So we have Ripcon, who is to send out the monster. And so by the time that the Rangers go back to this tree, we have Preston, who is telling the Rangers, like, hey man, maybe we should probably give up on this tree, because my dad won't give up on just getting rid of it. So we have the Rangers that are like, no, like, we're going to keep with the faith and hope that the town is going to come and help us. And come to find out, we have a number of protesters that are also coming down to try to help out, because they have so many memories from this tree. So this ribbon tree. So we have Mr. Tien that is to go on to tell Cutter, construction worker guy, like, hey man, cut down this tree. And Cutter's like, you know what, there's a lot of people here, like, I don't know, like, I think we should, like, think against this. Like, do you really think this is the best course of action? And Mr. Tien is just like, give it to me, like, give me the chainsaw, I'll do it my frickin' self. So we go on and have Mr. Tien that is looking at Preston. He's like, you know what, I'm disappointed in you. I really am, Preston. That Power Rangers Hyperforce, what the heck was that? I always would hope that they would do a second season, though. But man, was that show so goofy. So, we all of a sudden have this ribbon that bizarrely is falling from the sky. To have Mr. Tien look at this ribbon and realize that this ribbon is to connect his past wife and Preston, because of course this was the day that Preston had been born, and so Preston's mom had, I guess, put this ribbon on this tree, and Mr. Tien had realized that, and he's like, oh my god, like, yeah, this was like a big memory in our lives. And so we go on to have Mr. Tien's heart that grows 2 times this day, and ever the Grinch goofy and addition here. So we have Mr. Tien. It's like, you know what? Like, I can't go on and justify like tearing this thing apart either. And then all of a sudden we have the Kudabots. Weirdly enough, the Kudabots. What goofy name is that? But again, we still have like Loogies and whatever heck else foot patrol characters that we've ever had in the show. The Robot Warriors, flimsy names for goofy characters. Anyways, so we have the Codabots that come in and start blasting away. Then we have Trapsaw, who is coming to Mr. Tien. It's like, well, hey, like, I'm going to go on and I'm just going to tear through this tree. Because it seems this tree is messing up my trap. Because I guess a Trapsaw had put a trap nearby this tree. So we have Mr. Tien that's like, you're not doing a thing of that. You're not doing a such thing of that. And all of a sudden, Preston comes in and kicks Trapsaw. And you would think that Preston would have just lost a leg here because chainsaw monster, but no. Preston kicks Trapsaw. Trapsaw runs away. So we go on to have Preston, who is to kind of ask his, like, go to his dad. And it's like, man, like you kids, like, are really, really very, like, I'm surprised in how, like, mature you guys all are, and you just go on and just kick that monster like it's nobody's business. So Preston's like, well, yeah, like, all right, like, so Preston leaves his dad to go on and morph with all the Rangers. So we then have the Yellow Ninja Star wire attack, which is actually a decent looking, like, kind of attack where the guy just kind of, like, has this rope and is attacking people. Kind of obvious to just state that outright. So we all of a sudden have the Red Ranger, who has his Ninja Black or Ninja Star. Maybe it's a Ninja Steel. Maybe I'm saying Star and it's Steel. I don't know. So the Ninja Star Blast Strike, and then we have the Pink Ninja Earth attack, where she goes on and just has all the Kudabots just kind of fall into this hole. And I'm like, okay, just fully embracing the Looney Tunes part of this episode. All right, cool. So we have the Rangers that go into their morphin bows, and we have the Gold Ranger that uses his Rock Storm thing, which is a really cool but goofy weapon. Because I went on and saw it before, I was like, wow, that's like a guitar thing? All right, like, and so they end up doing the Rockstorm final attack combined with the Morpher bows. So we all of a sudden have then Trapsaw, who is to need to become gigantified or gigantifully, whatever they state here. So we have the Cosmo Royale, who's asking the people in the audience, look, well, hey, like, should we go on and give him another chance? And like, yeah, you might as well, because the guy's gonna lose anyways. So the Rangers go for the Ninja Steel Megazord. And so we have the Ninja Steel Megazord that goes into Ninja Master mode. Then we have the Robo Red Solo Strike. We have the Ninja Master Blade Spin. We go on and also have the final attack. And we have Trapsaw, who's complaining that the Rangers didn't fall into his final trap, and then he dies. So we all of a sudden have the Rangers that demorph and get out of their Zords, and they're kind of walking around. And, or no, we have the Rangers that go on and they're still morphed and they're just kind of walking around. And we have a guy who's just kind of creepily in the background, just kind of watching. He's like, So, we come to find out that Mr. Tien is to kind of blow money on a sign that says Ribbon Tree Park. And so we all of a sudden have the two Goombas, the two, like, evidently Bulk and Skull characters, because that's now, like, a thing that you have to just state, like, okay, who are going to be the Bulk and Skull characters, and that's going to be these two Goombas. So they end up sitting down on this bench, and they realize that they had gotten fired by Preston's father, and so they end up sitting on this bench, and the bench ends up being the last trap, and the bench all of a sudden, like, collapses, and these characters fall into this hole. And so we all of a sudden have Brody, who's to meet up with some rando guy, and this guy ends up being Aiden, who is Brody's brother. And I'm like, okay, whatever that means. So we go into the last episode. So this, of course, is to be the monster mix-up. If I haven't gone on and stated what all these episodes were, it is what it is. So we have the Rangers that all have these goofy costumes on. We have Brody, who is a Roman. We have Calvin, who I believe is a wrestler, because that's the only thing that in my brain made the most sense. We have Haley, who's a hippie. We have Preston, who of course is a caveman, because Cody exists, or Kodo exists. So you have to go on and just consistently have so many things that tie Preston in with Coda. If they did not go on and have to just write all that stuff in, or really just Preston requested it every single time, I would just be like, man, like, some catering is going on. But anyways, so, no offense, it's just, like, why is it that they've written in Coda to so many of these, like, Ninja Steel episodes? Is really Coda the fan favorite of Dino Charge? For the life of me, I could not believe that, but what it is what it is. So, we have Sarah, who is to be the Air Force pilot. So, we're going on, and one thing that I have to state, I saw this monster called the Typeface monster. Looks really cool, but I'm sure it'll be some goofy, stupid episode. But, man, does Typeface look really cool. Immediately when I was going through this and I was kind of searching through a bunch of monsters, I saw Typeface randomly. I was like, wow, this looks cool. And so maybe at some point I'm going to cover that episode of tech support. It looks cool. But so, anyways, we have Versix that comes in here. And he has this kind of bell. It almost looks kind of Christmassy. I was like, oh, we kind of somehow squeaked in some Christmas a little bit. But we have this guy that is have like these skulls all around him. And he has a skull for a face. I was like, man, that looks pretty sweet. Almost like a kind of wedding bride kind of costume almost, but still. So we all of a sudden find the gruesome grunts with Versix. He's not one of them, but he's kind of connected with them. So we have Action, which was a cool monster, which of course is to need to be Brody. We have Stabarus, who is a kind of this like Swiss Army knife kind of monster. It looks really cool. I thought that was cool. And then we have the Fangor that looks kind of Dracula-ish. Looks pretty sweet. Then we have Plasmora, that is basically the ripoff of the villain from Mystic Force. Go on and tell me exactly what that name is, because I don't remember. But at least I can go on and tell you, yeah, it looks like the exact same thing from Mystic Force, but they just kind of gave her a paint job a little bit. And then we have Jabberon that, take it or leave it. It's another monster. And then we have Sheldax that honestly looks like crap. So we go on and have the Rangers that are stating that they don't have their morphers on them because the Pink Ranger is a state that Mick is to have gone on and to take their morphers while they're trick-or-treating to adjust them. We also, while the Rangers were kind of walking around and Preston was being a caveman, it seems that there was a joke that Preston is to be smelly. It's like, well, hey, he's a caveman. He should be smelly. So we also had Brody who was talking about, man, like there's 7 monsters here. Like Odious is like really feeling desperate to just like pile on the monsters, but I love an episode where there's just a ton of monsters anyways. Even though they don't really go on and they have the Rangers defeat all the monsters by themselves, technically there's a way to just write out the monsters in this episode, which was kind of like, really? Come on. But so we have both Brody and we have both Brody and we have both Sarah, who end up, after the Rangers swap bodies with the monsters, we have Brody and we have Sarah who are to kind of scramble away before the monsters all go and get handcuffed and end up getting taken by the mummy guards, who of course are to be these kind of policemen who are collecting the gruesome grunts and taking them to the intergalactic Halloween court. So we have the Halloween court that is to have this court witch, which I was like, oh yeah, I think I remember her from the Dino Charge episode. And so when the monsters and the Rangers are kind of side by side here watching this whole thing all play out, and I love that we end up having, like, throughout this whole episode, we have to have the monsters and the Rangers go on and, like, be, like, mouthing all this stuff and having all these people kind of do these other voices. It's cool. So we have the intergalactic Halloween court state that the one word that they love to see or say is justice. So we have the court witch who's to go on and tell the gruesome grunts that they're going to pay for their crimes. And so we, I think, have the court witch that goes on to explain the whole, like, kind of tier system whenever these characters would go on and do something wrong. All of a sudden this thing would start ticking away. And so for whenever they would get to, like, the top of this thing, that would mean that they are going to get vaporized. And so we get into that whole explanation. So we go on to have Sheldax that is to state, it's like, well, hey, like, these monsters that are actually these teens, like, they don't know everything about the Power Rangers. So they go on and explain, like, the origins of how Ninja Steel was to come to be, and how Brody and Mick were to have saved the Nexus Prism from the villains in the beginning of Power Rangers Ninja Steel. And we have Preston get up, and he's the monster, and he's just like, well, like, so the evil Preston. We have evil Preston going on and saying, like, no, like we like we of course already know that we had gone on to pull out the ninja stars from the prison and become the Power Rangers. Like we know the origin of that whole thing, and anybody knows that. So we have Sheldex is like, oh crap. So we have both Redbot and we have both Mick who are kind of fixing up this this car. So we have Action, who is actually Brody, and we have Plasmora, who is actually Sarah, and we have them now having to convince Mick who they actually are. And Mick is like, oh no, it's monsters, oh wow. And so we have these monsters that are convincing Mick that he comes from the Lion Galaxy and his name is like Nickel Poo or some crap like that. And Mick is like, oh yeah, like, so you do know who I am. And so you are who you say you are. So we seem to have the mummy guards that are still looking for the other two monsters to collect them. So we go on to now have Fangor, who is actually Calvin, because heaven forbid I remember any of these names. The Rangers, the evil Rangers, go on and state that Fangor had gone on to try and attack them and had tried to drain their blood like a vampire normally would. And so we had them go on to state that the Rangers had to go on and do this ninja garlic dumpling technique via using their weapons to kind of have this garlic go into attacking Fangor. And so Fangor is like, well, hey, like, Fangor, who is actually Kelvin, Fangor states, like, well, hey, like, no, like, I like garlic. I love garlic. I'll eat garlic. Just give me something right now and I'll eat it. That's garlic. And so the core witch is like, well, hey, I have something garlic right here. Fangor goes on to eat the garlic and realizes that he's like, I hate the garlic. And so we have Preston, who is in the monster, is to go on and say, it's like, well, hey, like, we didn't know that when we were to, like, switch over in these bodies that we wouldn't have, like, the same similar weaknesses as these monsters do. It's like, you can't take, like, points away from us. And it's like, well, like you're just lying to us. Just feeding us this story. So we go on to have Stebris, who is actually Preston as a caveman, who is to state this story about the Rangers going on and needing to put on these goofy capes and have this magic wand. And so we have the monsters that are just like, we would never go on and we would never be like putting on capes and going up against this monster. Like, this doesn't make any sense. But then we also have Preston. It's like, well, if only I can go on and I could have that wand. Like, I can show you guys that I can actually use that wand better than Preston can. And they're like, dude, we're not going to give you a wand. Like, a monster getting a wand? Like, no, that doesn't make any rational sense. So, we have Redbot and Mick with Action and Plasmora, that are Brody and Sarah. So, we have them come up with a plan to kind of just put Versix in this garbage can, this kind of garbage thing. And so Mick is to have this plan as the mummy guards are kind of looking for these gruesome grunts. So the next thing that we have back at the trial is we have Sheldax, who of course is actually, heaven forbid I know any of these people. I don't even have that information. Let me pause here for 1 second. Levi. Levi goes on to start to sing while he's Sheldax. And we have the evil rangers that are kind of listening to this and like, ugh. And the monsters are like, yeah, go on and sing. Like, this is great. So we have the pumpkin judges that or I guess the judges. We have them go on and say to us, well, hey, like, there's going to be a negative on you because, like, hey, monsters can sing because all these pumpkins have a barbershop quartet going, and so they start to sing. So it's like, well, hey, like, that's another point against Gryffindor, so to speak. So we have the mummy guards that are coming into the court to have Cervix show himself, and he is to get arrested for working with the gruesome grunts. And so, as well as also we have Action and we have Plasmora as Brody and Sarah that are also there. So we have Versix that is to state, as he confesses, that he had switched the bodies of the Rangers and the monsters, and we all of a sudden have, like, the Rangers are like, oh man, hey man, like you're like, what are you trying to do? You're trying to, like, squeal so that way you can get less jail time compared to everyone else. So Cervix confesses, the jig is up, the Corwitch goes on and switches the bodies, so, and reverses the spell. So we have the monsters, with the exclusion of Versix, that all get vaporized. So we then go to have Redbot, as we find out that one Versix was to actually just be Mick. And Redbot is to go on and tell the Rangers, via this weird, goofy communicator, it looks very weird, that Versix had actually escaped and he's located at the docks. So we have the Rangers that go off and face off against Versix, and he goes on to do this Versix blast. Then the Gold Ranger goes on to do this tornado mode ninja spin, which is kind of interesting looking. And then we go into the double super strike, and we have Versix that states that he's like, well, hey, I'll be back. And man, is he back quickly. So we go and have Versix that ends up turning into the Make My Monster Grow moment. And we have the Rangers that go on to call for the Ninja Steel Ultra Zord, but then they go on to realize that once Versix is to kind of really take them down, and the Zord eventually dwindles down to the smaller Zords, the Rangers then realize, like, well, instead of just going on and just recombining back again into a Megazord, how about just all the Zords individually just start attacking the monster to wipe him out that way. But they're going to call in more Zords, because of course if you have a billion different Zords anyways, they might just well send all these Zords out. So we have the Sub-Zurfer, the Rumble Tusk, and the Astro Zord getting sent out, just all attack. So we have this Cannon Blast, we have the Super Zord Slashes final attack, we have the Ninja Super Steel mode. Then, with all of that randomness said, this wipes out this monster, and so the next thing we end up seeing is all of the Rangers going on and trick-or-treating. And so we kind of pull off a scene that kind of happens from the real Ghostbusters episode, The Halloween Door, where we all of a sudden have like Slimer, who is kind of wearing this mask that looks just like the main monster that they were to fight in the Halloween Door episode, and that ends up scaring the one like bad guy of that episode, Mr. Crowley. And so we have the same thing kind of going on here, where we all of a sudden have one of the trial jack-o'-lanterns that are on this bench, and they're thinking like, oh, like it's just a coincidence. Someone was to manufacture this jack-o'-lantern, and it looked just like one of the judges. And then all of a sudden, we have the jack-o'-lantern talk, and they're like, oh my god, what's up now? And then we have Mick that is to state, ha 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 ha, like I got you guys, because if all of you were to go on and get a treat, I was to go on and trick you. And it's like, trick or treat, isn't that nice? So that's how the episodes end. I'm gonna get out of here so I can go on and put this out. I apologize for how long this took, even though it's an hour and I spoke for an hour and a half. The longest probably review that I've ever done. I apologize. But anyways, I'm gonna get out of here. Goodbye, everybody. Bye, everybody. Probably went into way too much detail, but on top of that, there's 3 episodes. So goodbye, everybody. Bye, everybody.